Welcome to another episode of the Church Things podcast, where, believe it or not, we talk about church things. And in the studio today, aka Tim's office, I have with me Tim, because anytime we use his space, he makes us invite him to the podcast. I have Kevin Porter, who is our chairman of the elders right now. And then I have Phillip, who is also an elder. Today, we are going to be discussing how there are a lot of things that we love about our church, but we also recognize that there's some things we could be doing better. And so we want to have the humility to talk about those things. We talk about those things behind closed doors, but that's kind of the whole point of this podcast, is to kind of talk about publicly some of the things that we're talking about behind the scenes. Because maybe some of you are watching and they're like, I knew that they didn't do that well. I was wondering if they knew. And so, yeah, I'm going to start with Tim. What are some things that come to mind when you think, what are some things that we could be doing better at Central?
Well, I mean, obviously, for me personally, I'm doing everything exactly right. But as we talk about, and this is an interesting question, and the way that we've kicked this around. For me personally, I've run the gamut, and I've written down a lot of different things, and I think it's easy for us to be critical and harsh. And so my prayer is that this doesn't sound like a rant. But one of the things that seems to be, for me, a disconnect. We do a lot of outreach, and I'm proud of that. That's one of the things we do well. That goes in we put a lot of money behind it. We put a lot of effort behind it. We connect with a lot of people locally and globally, and we have a lot of strategic partners. But the design of that, and specifically events that we're doing in the community, is to kind of inspire people that to take that and run with it personally. And so I think corporately we do a pretty good job of outreach, and I think we do a pretty good job of creating space to share the gospel. But I don't know that always translates into personal, what am I doing in my job? What am I doing at the ball fields? And so there still seems to be some disconnect or some hesitation or maybe some insecurity in sharing faith. And talking about Jesus in the public setting, if it's not something that we're doing corporately. And so I'd love to figure out how we train or equip or release people to do evangelism, to share their faith.
Good. What do you guys think about that? Do you think we struggle with personal evangelism?
It's one of those things that you're going to always say, oh yeah, we can do better, but we should. And especially in this day and age, I think there's a lot of hesitancy because, we're talking about in this current series of culture, and there's more resistance probably in regards to the gospel in our culture than we've ever seen before. So I think there's a lot of fear that comes there with it. But for me, what I hear people saying on evangelism is really based in fear. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And so that's what we've been trying to address in these things. But I also think that it's probably also a part of culture in that it's not a priority. Yeah. We've got so much on our plate that we're not going to worry about that. And we like to segment our spiritual side and our spiritual stuff for Sundays and Wednesday nights. Yeah. And so we don't look at it as this is our life.
Yeah.
And so if this is our life, evangelism, in my opinion, is a natural output of being a Christ follower daily, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing.
And I do think some of that, to throw it out there, but then to defend it, is so much of our life is we do life together with people who are like us. And faith is a huge part of that for my family. And so my interaction with people who are not believers is minimal. I go to church with church people, and I hang out with church people, and I play with church people, and I do life together with church people. And so finding those people who are not church people to do life with, I don't have a ton of opportunity there. And so, and I think statistics bear that out, that the longer you're in the church, the less likely you are to have unchurched friends. And so, we talk about in the workplace, or, where we do our hobbies, but the reality is we tend to flock together with people. And I think there's an intentional side of that oftentimes gets missed.
Yeah. I think to put that back on us, though, I think because, do you guys think it's easier for us to offer opportunities for people to serve and to do outreach? It's easier for us to schedule a mission trip or schedule a night where we go and serve at Hope Campus than it is to train our people on how to navigate talking with people at their work, how to share their faith. You know what I'm saying?
That's a really good point.
Yeah, just knowing when to share the gospel is so relational.
Yeah.
For me, like Tim's saying, just having so many functions where I'm with small groups, I'm with youth on Sunday. I'm not around many unbelievers, and unfortunately, I can't at work when I am with students. I'm not really allowed to share my faith as openly as I would. I would hope, but. Just being able to, the church creating those opportunities for us to be relational and be where people are, so we can then present the gospel to them. So to answer your question, I think that would help me.
Yeah,
because I'm not making those opportunities myself.
No, that's good.
Outside.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things that we've talked about too, just along with that, is when. Because we can become kind of insulated with our faith, and like you're pointing out the statistics that show the longer you're in your faith, the more likely it is to hang out with people in the faith. Just kind of the conversation we've had behind closed doors about how we see a lot of transfers, but we would like to see more converts, and so flesh that out, Tim. What do we mean by those terms?
Well, I think a lot of times what we would identify as church growth is really just, it may be growth that's central, that it's not growth to the kingdom. That somebody who is a believer, who is already a disciple of Jesus, transfers their fellowship. They're just moving from one community to another. And the truth is, the opportunity just right here where we live is so much bigger than just church people, and that doesn't mean that we don't want to welcome church people in, but just moving the same flock from pen to pen does not increase the fold. So, so I think a lot of times what we see as success is, and we do, part of our vision is to reach those who are outside of Christ and outside of fellowship. So we want people who are not in fellowship to find a home. But that seems to be the easier option than finding those who are outside of Christ.
Oh, that is a challenge.
So I think that this might be a natural segue, because I know we don't want to focus our whole time on this part, but I think we're actually seeing the opposite. Not only do we see more transfers than conversion, we see more deconversion than conversion. And that's people turning away completely. And so that's a real concern for us as the church in general. And so I was reading a Timothy Keller article this week. He wrote some op-ed about this. Statistically, the church is dissipating. I mean, it's going away. The nuns, there's more nuns that identify as I don't believe in
Catholic
anything.
Nuns.
Yes, nothing. I'm a nun.
No any. Yeah.
It's higher than it's ever been. And I thought it was really interesting reading it, because he said, hey, really what I think one of the big issues is that we're not diversified in the church. We're very segmented. So Central looks very similar. A lot of people look very similar. They're part of generally from the same socioeconomic class.
Yeah.
And what Keller pointed out in this article also was the lack of diversity, but that you generally have two sides. One that is going to be really focused on righteousness, like, hey, we're legalistic, boom, boom, boom. Or then you're going to have the other side that's really focused on social justice, which is grace. So one is truth, one is grace. We actually talked about this in another podcast.
Yeah.
And that we're really missing out that those are both supposed to happen at the same time. And so one of the things that I'd love to see Central do better is with diversity, because with diversity, that affords you the ability to give grace because you have perspective, right?
Yeah.
So you're hearing from other voices, they're involved, and especially like in leadership, we need diversity in leadership because that's what the kingdom of heaven looks like. And so I just really enjoyed Keller's perspective on it, because something has to change, because what's happening right now in the church in America is not working.
Yeah.
And I think we need to do a little bit of searching and looking within to see if we've got everything lined up and right. So anyway, that's where I naturally went, but maybe it was stupid.
No, I think again, it's what are we doing right, or what could we do better at Central, and the church universal, I think, is the same thing.
Yeah.
And we said a long time ago we want Central to look like heaven, and if we can't do that, we ought to at least look like Fort Smith.
Yeah.
And so we don't have the same demographic inside the church that we have inside our community, and we should have. We should be able to be diverse, and that's and I think it's natural tendency. There's all kinds of sociology that goes with that, but we're not here to be a sociologically sound group. We're here to be a theologically sound group. Mm-hmm. And theologically, every tongue, every tribe, every nation, and in Christ we are the same. And so to see those artificial lines that are not eternal is troublesome. We should, and I don't know that it's a sin of commission as much as it's a sin of omission, that we're just not looking for the opportune times to make sure that we embrace the diversity that the kingdom offers.
Yeah, that's good. One of the other things that comes to mind for me when I think about things that, but see, this one is, I don't even know. I'm going to ask you guys, do you think this is one that we should be doing better, or do you think that this is just something that isn't in our DNA as a church, and that's okay? And Tim's going to make fun of me for saying it this way because it's only a church model word. But in terms of being attractional, or in terms of being, and when we say attractional, we think our building looks really good, and we think Joshua does a great job on Sunday mornings. But the church model word of attractional really means very event-based, very event-driven. And so all communication, all social media, the way we talk about what we do as a church is all driven towards our Sunday morning service, and I think it's, we're all on, or maybe, I don't know if we're all on social media, but I'm on way too much social media, and I see what other churches are doing. And not that this is the podcast to defend, why we are the way we are, but we have had people come to us and say, this is why I go to church here, is, it's not the attractional model. But would you guys consider that something that we don't do well, something that we should be doing? How do you guys view that?
I have a negative response.
Okay, we'll start with Kevin.
Go for it.
Yeah. Man, as far as attracting others, I think we need to do that. And we need not worry about the people. You mentioned the pen. The people who are already in this pen, those are the people we can afford to offend. I think as far as being attractional. And if that offends them, that's okay. If it still draws someone and allows us that one moment to spread the gospel or share the gospel, then that's what you do. Jesus created a show, not a show, that was a bad word, but he did something miraculous to get.
He certainly drew a crowd.
He drew a crowd.
For sure.
He did it and drew the crowd, and then the gospel and the way was shared, and we're missing. But I don't want to be too far on the other side of that. That's all that it is, but. The folks that are here, including myself, because I'm one of those people who like not having that attractional piece. I just like for it to be what it is. And, I need to be offended that way if that offends me.
No, that's good.
If it'll share the gospel.
And for the record, your wife's an English teacher. The word is attractive. And only in the church do we say attractional because it rhymes with missional. And it really is a bad way for us.
Somebody fact check him on that.
It's
If you're watching, please look.
Joshua
at this.
won't let me get on my phone.
The attractive side of and it's like you said, though, like the attractive part of this is really tends to be more event driven. And there's nothing wrong with inviting people to something.
Yeah.
The criticism would be, are we inviting people to something, or are we inviting people to someone?
Mm-hmm.
And do we want them to come here, or should we go out there?
Yeah.
And I agree with Kevin. Jesus was able to draw a crowd. He did both. He went into the highways and the byways. He went from village to village. He went to where people needed the good news. And sometimes he set up a sign and said, "Hey, we're going to have bread and fish after the sermon's over," and drew a crowd. And both are needed. And for me, that idea of what it becomes the attractive model, I do have some angst there, because in the attractional church, they're very high quality in everything that they do, and there's some value in that. I think the Lord deserves our best, and sometimes because we're not aiming for that, we'll settle for something less than exceptional, and across the board. It's there's no finger pointing. I mean, there've been a lot of sermons that I thought, boy, that was rough, and I should have done more.
I wasn't saying agreeing with. I was saying about my own sermons.
Right.
Yeah. Man, we remember those sermons, Tim.
Well, I do, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm conflicted with it because it really matters why we're doing that. And so I'm all for quality. That's great. Yeah, we should be doing creme de la creme. But one of the things that I have an issue with, that I have concerns with, is we already, as the church, put so much focus on Sunday morning that I think, in a sense, we enable people because they identify that as their faith, coming to a church service Sunday morning, and it takes away from outreach. It takes away from, this is a life we're living.
Yeah.
And so that's what the church in general is already so focused on Sunday morning. So I'm really kind of conflicted with that, because I'm like, no, I don't want to just invite people to a Sunday morning. And I get it. Let's get them here. Let's share the gospel with them. Let's tell them there's something more to this. This is a life. This isn't Sunday morning. But the model of attractional is in play. And so are we going to bring in 200 more people that have just decided that Christianity really is coming to church service on a Sunday morning, if that's what we're portraying as our focus? Yeah. And I get it. I get what we would be doing. But it sounds like, we could put more emphasis on Sunday morning, but why don't we put more emphasis on living the Christian life during the week?
Yeah.
Because we got enough people just coming on Sunday morning.
No, for sure.
To be honest. We need more people actually following Jesus during the week.
Yeah.
So that's my conflict with it.
Well, we kind of do need some people to work in the nursery and preschool.
That's true.
Yeah,
but that is part of following Jesus, right?
Yeah,
that's the servanthood mentality, that I'm not coming here to be served. I'm coming here to serve. And so when we're attracting people, come to see us, come be with us, it does take away from, no, we're here to serve, not to be served. We're not here to entertain you.
Yeah.
And that kind of lends itself to another category that is preparing. What could we do better? That attractive model says, come and hear this guy speak and teach and preach, and it tends to be very leader centric. And we intentionally don't have one personality in the pulpit. I'm grateful for that. Part of that
come up to me this Sunday after I preached and said, what you said was just so different than what anybody else would have preached. And I was like, I'm going to take it as a compliment, even though I'm not sure that's how you meant it.
That's not even in the Bible.
We're looking forward to Tim being back next week.
Well, there's this idea that so much of, come and hear, and the word will be revealed if you come into this place. And it would be far better from a kingdom perspective if people were digging into the word Monday through Saturday.
Yeah.
If what we saw on Sunday was a springboard into Bible study, or a result of, man, I've been studying God's word all week. I kind of want to see how we're going to land the plane this week. And there maybe are some things that we could do to kind of encourage that. But I think it is dangerous for us to kind of lull ourselves into this reality that Sunday is where I get my Bible teaching.
Yeah.
And the rest of the week, I'll just, I'll pray and I'll listen to Christian music, but Sunday's where I'm in the Word. And so I think for us, if I could have, if one wish granted, it would be that our people are digging into the Word on their own, that they're feeding themselves, and that what we see on Sunday morning is the icing on the cake and not the cake.
Yeah.
Coming fresh off the Super Bowl, it makes me think just that this is the huddle. Sunday morning is the huddle, is the practice, but too many of us think it's the game. It's like it's the highlight. It's where we come and everything is laid out and spent there. And it's just the huddle where we come together and have a game plan, and we remind ourselves what the plan is, and then we go out and we execute the plan, and we live for Christ.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that really answers that first question that we were talking about well, just because I think talking about, is attractional something that we think that we can do better, is something that we want. Really, it's a like methodological difference. Like we, I think of Craig Rochelle, the guy who started Life Church, the lead pastor at Life Church, and he has this, and it might not be his phrase, but he's who I heard say it. He said, "We will do anything short of sinning to reach people with the gospel." And I think just how we think about going about that is different. And so it's like for some, or not that we're unique in that, but just that there's some people who view that as, well, the way we're going to do that is Sunday is going to be our game. And we don't view it that way. We view it as Sunday is the huddle, and we want our church to know that the game, it's Monday through Saturday, and that it looks like getting in the Word on your own. It looks like that personal evangelism with your coworkers, with talking with your family members about who Jesus is.
Sure.
And so I don't think it's as much. It's like, do we want to be more attractive? It's like, no, we think that this is attractive. Like, we think that this is the way that we want our people to go about real life, lasting change.
Well, and sometimes you think about that attractional, the churches that are doing a really good job with that, and you got a little bit of, your hall call song, the first song of the service is a Beatles song or whatever. It's like, I'm not really wanting to do that.
Yeah.
Josh
was ready though. He's ready to play the Beatles.
I don't want to look at the camera again.
Yeah. I don't want to be. I don't want to be a place that says, "Hey, our sermon series is going to come from, the latest author's, take on something."
Yeah.
But that we're going to intentionally focus on the Word of God, and I think we have to be very, very careful that we don't get distracted by the bells and whistles that are available to the church.
Yeah.
But also maintaining, it's a balance to maintain. And I don't know that we do that well. I mean, if we're talking about things we can do better, I think we can do better at events and managing the stuff that we have so that it is done with excellence, but not at the expense of the mission that we have to send people out.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, you bringing up Craig Rochelle, that's great, because that's not the model I like, but it's hard to argue with the impact for the kingdom of God. Craig Rochelle's, I can't even remember what the church is called.
Life Church.
Life Church, yeah. What they've done, the YouVersion Bible. How many people have access to the gospel right now because of that? And so I think we have to be really careful, because there is more than one way to skin a cat, and we are all meant for different purposes. Just like the individual members of the body, the churches have purpose. And so what's our personality? We don't want to become something we're not. And I think we're kind of in the middle. You have people that say, "Hey, let's do home church." Well, I think home church has great value, but that doesn't make what Central does wrong, and that doesn't make what Craig Rochelle's group did, because I already forgot it again, Life Church does.
Yeah.
So we've got to be really careful and support the kingdom, because I tend to do that. I will like badmouth a mega church. It's kind of like your sermon on pastors and how much hey, that's not for us to judge. We better be careful with that. So that's a really great thing that you brought up, because boy, what an impact for the kingdom a totally different model does.
Yeah.
That would be called very attractional.
No, for sure. And after you saying that, I think we should call this podcast "How We Like to Skin the Cat." No, but I'm thinking even just Tim, you were talking about like that fine line, or maybe it's not even a fine line, but just that we do, like, do we do well with this? I don't know, like walking that line of, because I'm thinking, not to timestamp this, but we have an elders meeting tonight, and one of the things we're going to be talking about is new ministry ideas, and it's like, so we're trying to come up with new ways to reach people, so it's like we want to be wary of, there's all these new, there's always new ministry philosophies, there's always new books, there's always new, we could always, get a fog machine or two, they're coming out with new ones every month. But it's like, but we're also thinking about like maybe starting a pickleball league, because that might reach some people, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, how do we walk that line and then recognize like where that is within like our not our realm of possibilities. It's not like we aspire to one day have a fog machine, but we never could. But just, how do we think about that?
Well, so I think part of, just as you were talking through that, the idea, talking about new ministry, that we're going to, we're asking the question, where are the opportunities for us to engage in kingdom work? Mm-hmm. Where's the opportunity for us to take the church where the church doesn't have influence right now? Yeah. What are just in our community, what are the ways that we can plug in and be an encouragement to take the gospel, to live that out? And so for us, we kind of have looked at, is this for ministry to the body, discipleship to help people grow? Is it outreach where we're gonna send our people into the community? Is it just community? Is it the church being the church? So those are kind of the three areas that we're, does it fit in one of these? And it really is kind of our mission. Our mission is bring in, build up, send out. And several years ago, our evaluation was, man, we do a lot of building up, but we don't do a lot of sending out, and we don't do a lot of bringing in. And there was tremendous conviction there, because wait a minute, we're not attractive or missional. We're not sending people out and we're not bringing people in. We're just kind of focused, inward focused. And that's a very dangerous place to be. So I think from a church perspective, we've moved outside of that as I think we're more intentional. And of course, the events of the last 3 or 4 years have changed the way we do church, and a lot of people have timed out on things. A lot of people have burned out on things, and so I think having the mission that sometimes we're supposed to bring people into the body, sometimes we're supposed to build them up, and sometimes we're supposed to send people out of the body. Yeah. I like that we've kind of joked behind the closed doors and bring in, build up, send out, run off. It's we're missing the fourth component, but hopefully everybody that's watching this is we're not running them off.
We'll add that to the t-shirts.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, we'll send those to everybody who's run off. Yeah. Hey, miss you.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to go from that one. I just blanked.
I'll tell you one of the other things that just what could we do better? Because that was the next question you were going to ask is, hey, are there other things? And yes, there are some other things. And I think this probably every church and probably every organization would tell you, especially for those of us who are dealing with volunteers. There is the old 80-20 rule. 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. We are far better than that. I don't mean that arrogantly. We're not an 80-20 church. We're a 50-50 church. 50% of the work's done by half the people, and
I was homeschooled, so I would say like maybe even 55-40.
Yeah. And so, but there is this, one of the things that is frustrating for me, and I don't know if it's generational. I don't know if it's we're just weary from the culture in which we live. If it's is we just don't have time. We don't have, we are exhausted. We're run ragged, and so the thing that we could do better is commit to doing our church life together. Commit to doing to being plugged in and to being involved. And it's easy for me to say at this point in my life because my children are raised and they're grown. But I remember what it was like to have 3 kids under the age of 7 in my home. Yeah. And we made a very, we pushed really, really hard to make sure that they were connected to the body and connected with other believers. And so the idea that we don't have time or that somebody else needs to do the work or that that's frustrating for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as part of the leadership team, what's frustrating to me is I realize how when that work is not done by the body, the pastoral staff usually picks up that. And it is not healthy for any of us for our leadership to be just exhausted and worn out. They can't love on the body and do plan these events because there's too much other things that could have been picked up by someone else. There's no reason, Tim, and definitely not you working in the nursery, that would not go well. Yeah. But it just exhausts you. So that 50%, if we are at 50-50, that 50% gets picked up by people who will essentially just get burned out, and it's just not good for their walk.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. And that's, scripturally, it puts it back on our responsibility as leaders is not necessarily to do the work, but Ephesians 4:12 says to prepare God's people for works of service. And so part of that frustration is, we either we're not doing a good job preparing people to serve, or we're not doing a good job of showing the need or the value of engaging there, or we're not doing a good job of recruiting. And so, this would be a great time to stop and go, okay, what are all the places that we need people to serve? But the people that would come serve are those folks that are already serving in 3 or 4 other places, and will respond to the need. So I guess if somebody's watching this and they don't have a place to serve, that would be the person that should send Blake a text and say, put me in, coach.
Plug me in. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. We always have a spot for you. We need you. We're tired. I'm just kidding. Just looking directly into the camera. Help. No. Yeah, I think one of the things that we touched on, I think is just a really beneficial framework to even view this whole topic, is the bring in, build up, send out framework. Because I think so often, all 4 of us come from, before we came to Central, we went to different churches, right? And some of us even visited other churches since being at Central. I would never, but
are you kidding?
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to name names, but it's Phillip. But just, I think so often we can, look at the church, maybe we grew up in, the church we went to before Central, the church that we've visited, and we say, oh, I really like that they, do fill in the blank well. And, one of the ones that we hit on a lot today was just the bring in aspect. So like talking about the attractional model. But like how anything you bring to the table can fit into those 3: bring in, build up, send out. Like, we are actively working, trying to come up with how are we going to bring in, build up, send out. And right now we have ways that we're doing that, right? But we recognize that, in all 3 of those areas, we could be doing better. And, usually at the end of the podcast, we say, if you're listening to this, like, we want to hear from you. I joked with this one. It would be like, we've already heard from you. You've told us what we're doing wrong. I'm just kidding. No, but we do want to hear from people. If you guys have anything else, you guys have anything that you're like, I really need to say, this is what we do. We could be doing better.
Yeah, I got. He's like 7 more.
Oh, okay, nice. That's kind of your job as the boss, right? You know, like I have the list of things we need to be doing better.
The one that has kind of crept into my world, and part of this is because of where I am in life, is this idea that I've paid my dues, that I've worked long enough in this area of ministry, or that I've done enough time, you know, as a small group leader, as a youth coach, or as a preschool worker, or as, you know, a door greeter, or and I've heard people say, I've paid my dues. And that's not a kingdom principle. You know, it was something we could do better is recognize that the kingdom economy is he paid a debt he did not owe, and we have a debt that we could never repay. And so our worship and our acts of service become this idea that we are seeking after him by serving the body and by serving him. And so one of those frustrations for me is I've paid my dues. Well, you're not dead yet.
Yeah.
You know, and there are people, and the reason that it gets frustrating for me is because I've started to say it, and that's terrifying. That oh no, am I turning into an old guy? Am I going to be crotchety and as I can? You know, I don't want to be that guy. Yeah. And then the other part of this is I look as a father. And my kids are all in a new stage of life, and I have this much influence there, but they need somebody that's walked where they're walking in their careers, who's walked where they're walking raising their families, who's walked where they are now walking, you know, in their marriages and in their relationships, to come alongside and say, we want to do life with you. And the thing that is amazing to me is that we just don't time out. Yeah. And so that's if I had a desire or something I could just, you know, magically erase, it would be that phrase, I've paid my dues.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And I just tell them they can't retire from following Jesus. That's not how it works.
Well, and
following Jesus means you serve.
I mean, maybe I would carry a ledger board around. You hadn't paid him. Jesus did a lot more for you than you've done for him. Yep. And that's not to say that there is not grace. I mean, we are saved by grace, not by works. But because we're saved by grace, we go to work. You know, one of the things that I see over and over in Scripture is the church doing life together. And one of the things that I think we can do better, we talk about 242 a lot. That's how we've modeled our small groups. We talk about 434. That's how we model helping people within the church. There's some component of hospitality that over the last 4 or 5 years has kind of been on the decline. And something that I would like to see us do better as a church, as a leadership, as a pastoral staff, is inviting people to do life together, to invite people into our homes, to invite people into our lives, and love on each other in a way that is healthy, that helps us to grow. So
that's good.
I mean, and you know, again, everybody's referenced the Super Bowl. You know, we did that a little bit last night. I think you guys had, you know, a get together. You guys had a get together. We're just doing life together so that we could discover, you know, together that Kansas City was a good team, that Rihanna might be expecting another child. I mean, just life together, really important things.
Glad you brought that up.
We learned a lot. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not going to let anyone else add anything else. Hey, we hope that you guys gleaned some wisdom from this, but more than that, saw that we have the humility to say that we're not the best at everything. We don't think we're the number one, you know, church that does everything right. There's lots of things that we could be doing better. If you guys have any thoughts, comments, questions, we'd love to hear from you. And if not, we'll see you next time.